Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we got something special for you. I bought this watch on eBay from a different country. The seller guarantees me that this is original. Fully original is actually what he said. So we're going to go ahead and get into this and check it out. And yeah, from the looks of it, this case back is definitely an Omega. And the movement looks real. I own another watch with a movement in it like this, and I own a spare parts movement as well. So yeah, it looks a little fishy. You can see the crown tube from the front through the crisp, around the dial, and this movement doesn't look like it fits in this case very well. Just from doing some serial number decoding on this, it looks like, well, this movement's a 562, which is from 1958 to 1967. This one specifically is a 1966. Well, this movement on the case back, it shows that it's 2981-4, which is 1950s. Well, I mean, maybe that's pretty close, but the problem with that is that the 2981-4 would have had a sub-seconds hand movement in it. It would have had the Omega 491, most likely. And if it had a center seconds automatic, it would have had a 501. This movement is more valuable than those. So I'm not hurting too bad on price for what I paid for it, and I'm not super upset about it not being fully original. I do believe that the case is authentic. I believe the movement and dial are authentic. I just don't think they are from the same watch. I think it's two models that were put together, both 1950s to 60s models, but they don't fit perfect. So before we get into tearing this watch down all the way, I just want to state, I buy and sell watches a lot. I do a lot of work on Omegas specifically, this movement specifically. I don't know everything, but I know a decent amount. And I got burned. Now, I could have returned this watch and probably got my money back. eBay's pretty good about that kind of stuff, but I wanted to make a video about it. And if you guys are out there looking at watches, just be careful. Be careful what you buy on eBay. The seller had good reviews. He has other watches on his page. You never know what you're gonna run into. Do your research before you buy anything. All right, now we're gonna get down into the good stuff here. I'm gonna start tearing this watch apart, and tell you the truth, this watch is running pretty decent. Its beat error was off a lot at first, and it kept like 45 seconds a day fast or something with a pretty low amplitude, but I mean, it was running and it was keeping relatively okay time. In this video, I'm going to show you like how to tear down and reassemble the automatic works in this. I plan on having sectioned out spots in the video so you can click through and look and see if you're working on one of these where exactly you need to be to see what you're doing. So if you're wanting to do the automatic works, you can scroll all the way to the end where the automatic works is being reassembled. I've got some new oils and lubrications in this that I'll go over. Okay, so I've noticed while I'm taking this apart, I can't get it to unwind. I can't get the power reserve out. I removed the click totally. Click is out here, I'm taking it out, and it still will not unwind. So when you're doing this, you need to be careful. I will hold the crown in my fingertips and remove the automatic works bridge, and once I do that, then the watch will begin to unwind. It's something in the automatic works stopping this from moving. Some of the new lubrications I got were for the automatic works, the Lubetta and stuff like that. You can just dip, well, I send them through the cleaning machine and then dip it in that and let it dry, and then it leaves like a film on there that lubricates it. As you can see, as soon as I pulled that bridge up, I was prepared holding the crown, it started to unwind. So we'll let it all the way unwind, let the balance stop. All right, we'll go ahead and get the top part of this ratchet wheel out of here. This is the crown wheel, and there's a little spacer underneath there that you need to make sure you have that. as you can see, there's a lower ratchet wheel on there, and that lower ratchet wheel meshes with the gears in the automatic works, and I believe that's why it wasn't unwinding. The rotor actually, when it rotates, it spins that, and then when you wind it by hand, it spins the upper. This is a friction spring for the offset. Sorry, that's a center seconds hand or pivot. And yeah, it is an offset, but it's just this one pivot in there held in by that friction spring. This here's that lower ratchet wheel I was talking about. Now we can get the click spring. I like to use these plastic pointers to keep the spring from flying. I've had a few suggestions from some guys on here, and I guess, or Alex or Alexander or whatever. I'm not sure. Your username is a little hard to read, but that Poljo, I've found some of those. I'm keeping my eye out. I'll end up getting one, and we'll do it on the channel. Do a full service on it. I'd like to get into some of those. I've not ever actually worked on any of the USSR stuff. Be cool to get something like that on the channel. Goes and some other stuff. Most of this stuff I do is Swiss. Here we are taking the train of wheels out, and it's kind of a weird way to take it apart, because you really should take the train of wheels out before you take this bridge off here. You'll see later in the video I put this bridge on with the train of wheels in, and you got to be very careful doing that. It's a center wheel. This is the wheel that the second hand pinion goes through. Now this barrel looks like it has some damage, but I don't think it's going to affect how the watch runs any. I do have a new barrel if I decide that it isn't good enough, but I think that one will be fine. It's the pallet fork bridge. Almost all of these bridges have a bevel under one side of them that you can stick a screwdriver in there, and that's actually what it's for, to lift the bridges. Pallet fork looks good. One of the last watches, I don't remember which one, after I had it all done, the pallet fork stone fell out. Note how the yoke is positioned. We make a mistake later on, put that in backwards. That is the correct orientation there, though. Now this thing doesn't want to come out of here. Be careful, because if you pry up on this too bad, you will break or bend something. You don't want to do that. Once it does come up out of there, the spring goes flying. It's gone. I found it. Alright, let's pop this barrel open. Get a look on the inside. Yeah, it doesn't look too bad. You know, it's a little bit of wear on the top side. Get this arbor out of there, it looks good. The spring looks okay. And honestly, by the end of the video, the amplitude's like not great. It's acceptable for what I'm using the watch for, but I think that if I was gonna get rid of this, and maybe if I do end up getting rid of it, I'll put a new mainspring in it. Here's the automatic works, and we'll go ahead and disassemble this. There are these 3 screws here on this bottom bridge, and that's the only screws you have to take out to get this all the way apart. Those 2 and this one. Okay? There's these 2 little gears. There's the reversing wheel and the drive wheel, intermediate wheel. Not sure the name. But all of these will go into the cleaner with all the rest of the watch parts. And that is as tore down as it gets right there. No need to take anything else apart. All the parts are in the cleaner. We'll send them around. It'll do 5 minutes, 5 minutes in each cycle. A clean cycle, a rinse one, a second rinse, and then a heat dry cycle. Go ahead and lube up this center wheel. Set it off to the side because we're not ready for it yet. The escape wheel going in. And this is what I meant about these Omegas being kind of difficult. None of these, like this train of wheels, none of the pivots want to go in their holes. Some watches you work on, they just line up and they just fall into place. This one does not want to go in there. Maybe that's because it's tight. Maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. But we end up getting it. I lose some microscope footage a couple times. This is the center wheel we lubricated. Go ahead and drop it down in. So here I should have already had the barrel on. And this wheel is the one that causes an issue with the barrel bridge when you go back on, because the barrel bridge has a jewel for that center pivot on that center wheel. This is the microscope footage I lost. I don't have any microscope footage of lining up the jewels, lining up the pivots with the jewels on this main bridge, but I do have footage of putting it on, just this right here. I played around with the angles. I took a lot of stuff out. Like I said, taking all the screws out and stuff. I tried to cut out a lot of stuff that I didn't feel like was super necessary. The videos are kind of long. They take forever to edit. I usually have like 12 hours of footage, which doesn't really sound that crazy, but that's after the watch is done. And then you got to do the commentary, and I commentary struggle. I've been trying to take notes and do better at that, but my mainspring winders are really bad. I need to get a good set. So for now, I'll wind them by hand. This is a little tool here for closing the lid of the barrel. You just put it on there and push it in. You'll hear it click. Check to make sure the lid is flush before you put it in here. Now here you'll see what I'm talking about with this barrel bridge. You have to be very, very careful when you do it this way. This is probably not the correct way. The barrel bridge and barrel should have been installed before the train of wheels. But that's pretty abnormal. Usually that's not the case. So I'm going to try and align it with that center pivot and then just rotate it around. Try my best not to bend any wheels. And that center pivot and the barrel arbor need to line up, as well as the holes for the screws. And it looks like we got it. No damage caused. Let's see if yep. Slight pressure moves all of the wheels. So go ahead and get these screws in here. Here's where they all go. Go ahead and get some lubrication on all these points. So you got to lubricate the top of the barrel arbor. Lubricate the pallet fork stones. The exit stone. I guess it probably doesn't really matter. You could probably do both. It's going to spread it across anyway. You know, the pallet fork's one thing I didn't have any issue with on this watch. Sometimes that's the most difficult one to get in, and it drops right on. I'd say besides the balance, hairspring and stuff, the pallet fork's probably the second easiest thing to break in most of these watches. Those jewels will fall out. You could always glue them back in with the shellac or something, but just be very careful when you put this together. You don't want to break anything. That looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and get the screws in. One here and one there. Click spring. I got some new cool tools that will be on the channel soon. I got a new lathe. It's a 1944, I think. Numbers matching. Peerless Marshall lathe. I bought a full set of collets, 8mm stuff. Gotten all the belts and stuff ordered. Once I get a setup for that, I'll do a video on it. But it's pretty cool, and I like to record my process of learning how to do all that. I got a power supply for electroplating and some chemicals and a lot of supplies, so I'm going to try to learn how to electroplate as well. Let's see, what else? Any other new tools in here? Case back opener, you haven't seen that yet, but it's not as cool. I'm going to get a laser for my CNC so I can laser cut parts. I think that's it. I have a Hamilton chronograph that I'm wanting to bring back to the channel as well, but I have not done the chronograph yet, and I don't know how that's going to go. So I might try and service it without recording it first. Maybe I'll record it and I want to upload it. But a lot of the times it's a lot more difficult to record and service than just service it. It takes like a lot longer. And since I haven't done, which is the Value 7750, so there are a lot of documents online. So it's not like I won't be able to figure it out eventually. But if I tried to record that and make a video, it'd probably end up being 2 hours long. Since these simple automatics end up being half hour to 50 minutes sometimes, so maybe I do have a simpler chronograph as well, but it's got radium, so I need to figure out something to do with that one. It'll be on the channel at some point, hopefully, unless I trade it for something else. So here we are going to put some wind in this watch after we have all the ratcheting stuff back together. Spread some of this oil from the pallet forks across the escapement. That all looks good. Let's drop the balance down in there and see what happens. I like this rotate method. This seems to work the best for me. If you guys struggle putting balances in, try it the way I do it. You might be surprised at how easy it is. Just be very careful when you do this part right here, because if you tap that too hard, you will break the hairspring. But 9 times out of 10 that works. Lines the pivots up and it'll start running right away. I struggled with that for a while pretty early on, but it's gotten a lot easier. Yeah, so it looks like we have pretty decent amplitude, and this is before any of the pivots have been oiled. Train of wheels and the balance pivots haven't been oiled yet. So the friction spring for the center seconds. Put a dab of oil there. Go ahead and flip it over and we'll start working on the dial side. This is the bottom side of the barrel arbor. There's actually a 9501, the blue grease on this pivot here. It's more like a button, but it rotates inside of there, so I put some grease on it. I guess it oscillates, doesn't rotate. The winding pinion. This also gets 9501. Or a thick grease. Sliding clutch. Same thing. I've seen a lot of watches with worn out winding pinions recently, so I'm going to go ahead and slap a bunch of grease on there. If you wondered why there was too much. This is the spring that holds down that detent for the crown, so you can't pull the crown out. It also is the setting lever. I don't know. I'd have to look the name up. This is a intermediate wheel. This goes from the sliding pinion, so when you move it out, you can rotate the date. When you push it back in, it puts it into the wind position. And when you pull the crown out, it interlocks with this and allows you to set the date or time. Yeah, the date too, I guess. The Yoke spring. Gotta be very careful with these. They will fly. You know, the springs in there good, but we're going to go ahead and put this yoke in backwards. The procedure is still right, just had a little bit of issue. Pull this spring out of the way, and then that yoke can fall down where it needs to be, and then you can push the yoke over into the crevice of the sliding clutch. Unfortunately, it's backwards. We'll go ahead and grease it anyway. It doesn't matter if it's backwards or not. Go ahead and get this bridge on there. I didn't realize it was backwards until I had this bridge on, but we'll fix it. I was making good progress, you know. All went together. Like, here we go. Look, there's the dog hair. Husky. Alright, so we're moving. But we can't pull it out. I'm like, man, what's going on? Okay, so the yoke goes backwards. This is how it goes. That's good. Now we have functionality. Cool. Cannon pinion going back on. Don't bend your tweezers. Don't bend teeth on the hour wheel. Minute wheel? Hour wheel? I don't know. This is the calendar wheel. That's an intermediate wheel. Probably called something else. I'm going to lubricate these points just because they move slowly. See if it works. Cool. Everything rotates. This is the date dial. Now, for some reason, after the watch has been running for a couple of days, I noticed that the date doesn't jump to the exact position for the window. It does jump. It does work. It's 3-4 days in a row. And it's jumped, but when it jumps, it doesn't jump all the way. Now, I may end up taking this back apart and trying to figure out what's going on with that. It could be that the dial is just worn out. I do actually have a spare calendar wheel. I have all these parts, actually. So if it ends up being something worn out, but it didn't happen while I was working on it. It didn't happen when I put it together. It only happened when it did it by itself. Maybe it needs to lubricate it a little better. I'll show you both of these capstones. Now these capstone jewel settings, I've seen a new way that people are doing these. Not a new way people are doing them, but a new way to me that I haven't seen before, where they're just cleaning them, putting them back together, and then automatic oiling them. So I'm thinking about getting an automatic oiler to do that. I actually bought a set, like an organized size by size set of a couple hundred of these, because I lose them so often. I actually didn't lose any on this watch, but I think the last 3 watches I lost these on. You want to just get a small drop of oil, about a bubble right in the center. Front and back are usually the same. I show you both sides because this watch is different on both sides, but here you go, small drop. That's actually probably too much oil on that. It'll suck the stone up to the jewel setting, set the jewel setting down into the jewel setting. I don't know. It's called something else, Chatron, something like that. Hey, if you know, leave a comment. This is the spring. This is why it's different. That is microscopic, and I'm telling you, that doesn't look that small, but those things, you'll squeeze them just slightly too tight, and they'll fly across the room. You'll never find it. You'll never find it. And I've got a black light, and they don't glow. They don't glow enough to do that. The automatic works. Going back together. These 2 smaller wheels down here at the bottom of your screen, those are different sizes. One of them is larger than the other, and that matters where they go. Well, obviously, it matters where they go. This here is the correct orientation. This was not the first try. Promise you. I didn't take any pictures of this, but this is how it goes together right there. And then you put this bridge plate on, and be careful not to bend that transfer wheel. Be careful how you do this, because you will bend that wheel trying to press this on here. You don't have to ask me how I know, I'll tell you. I bent it, but I had a spare one, so I put it on there. And I actually bent it when I put the screws in. I put these screws in, and while I was pressing it, I bent the wheel. They make tools for that. You could probably I should probably get a 3D printer, but you could like 3D print a stand that would hold it perfectly. This is with the new wheel in it. It's no longer bent. I don't know why I'm trying to move that, because you really can't move that wheel both directions. I guess maybe just line it up to get it seated. Go ahead and put the screws in. I lubricated the bottom side. Just didn't see that. I'm just putting 90-10 on there. You could probably go with a thicker. That was actually a thicker. That was 1300. You could probably go with thicker. I just kind of didn't read the documents on this. I just kind of did it. Like I said, I have a bunch of these. I have a bunch of movement parts for these. This 560 family of movements are pretty common. Just about every Omega I've worked on has this movement in it, or something from the family of it. You know, we're checking the rotation and making sure that wheel spins, and it does. So this is after everything's been lubricated and set, and this is the first time it's being time graphed. And you can see what we end up with, and then below it, that is what it ended up with after a couple days, after like the oil settled and stuff. Keeps pretty good time, amplitude's like 200, 210, 190 to 210, somewhere in there, depending on how you're holding the watch. I'm not super upset with that. That's fine. You know, the amplitude isn't really that important anyway, as long as the watch starts and runs. It keeps good time, so that's fine. See how the date clicked over? Yeah, it's not working now. Now it stays like that when it clicks over, which is very weird. Even like 4 a.m., it's still, like right now, let me look at it. Yeah, right now, you know, it's 3:31 in the morning, and it hasn't clicked all the way over yet. That's fine. I'll fix it. This is actually the old crystal. I ended up putting a new crystal. I ordered a new crystal and put it in, because they had that crystal glued in and it wasn't the right size. This is the new crystal. This is how it turned out. I have a new band coming. This is actually a band from one of my other watches, but I want a darker band on this. I'll post pictures to my channel once I get the darker band on there. Here comes a wrist shot. 7 3/4 inch wrist. This is a 35 millimeter case. Let me know what you guys think. Peace.